Since the situation in Syria began to deteriorate due to oppression and violence nearly 2 years ago, the ongoing conflict between regime forces and the opposition has sent hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees across the border into neighboring countries such as Jordan. After spending days traveling on foot, they reach the border to find refuge and succor. These Syrians endure great hardship and poor conditions in refugee camps, even after suffering the pain of dispossession and the arduous journey to safety.
والله صعبة كتير. صار علينا فيضانات والأولاد تأثروا يعني ومرضوا، وفي عنا ولد بنوب تعب. واجت الهيئة الأردنية شالتنا وحطت العيلة بالكرفانة. وأنا بعدني بمكاني. وكل شوي عنا هلا بالشتويه هاي كمان طافت عنا خيمه بنشيلهم اهل الخيمه بنحطهم بخيمتي انا، يعني حياه صعبه شوي.
This is the Zatari camp for Syrian refugees in the Mafraq Governorate in the northeast of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. This is the condition of the camp following heavy rains that were greeted at first as a good omen. The rising waters forced the refugees to relocate within the camp, seeking reprieve from the cold winter and the deluge.
Syrian refugees in the camp suffered a lot by the heavy rain and the flood which happened in Jordan, and they are suffering by the cold weather, and their tents were destroyed, and they don't have a warm blanket. That's why we are providing the tent for the winter season and also for the blanket for the winter season.
After witnessing the suffering and damage caused by the heavy rains, the government of Japan, represented by the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, responded to calls by the kingdom and the refugees, supplying them with essential aid, including heating and shelter, specifically designed to withstand harsh weather conditions, extreme cold, and continuous rain, all fabricated to the highest international standards.
This time, JICA has provided 50 tents and 3,900 blankets for the Syrian refugees in Zatari refugee camp. And these emergency items will be distributed through the Jordan Hashemite Charity Organization in cooperation with UNHCR to the Syrian refugees in this camp.
The Jordan Hashemite Charity Organization, in its capacity as the official body responsible for the distribution of humanitarian aid to Syrian refugees in Jordan, received the aid and supplies presented by JICA under the auspices of the UNHCR, in the presence of His Excellency the Ambassador of Japan to Jordan and the Director of the country's JICA office, as well as several local officials. The task of setting up tents and distributing much-needed emergency aid could now begin.
الحكومة اليابانية مشكورة، ساهمت في تخفيف من هذه المعاناة بتقديمها المساعدات الأولية اللي هي عبارة عن الخيم اللي احنا بنشاهدها خلفنا وبعض الأحرامات والبطانيات لتخفيف من معاناة الشعب اللاجئ السوري داخل الأراضي الأردنية.
It is also worth mentioning that the aid presented by the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, does not only cover Syrian refugees within the camp, but also reaches local communities all over Jordan that have embraced their brothers and sisters from Syria, especially providing for the healthcare and education sectors. Equipment will be provided to a number of medical centers in the governorates of Mafraq and Irbid, as well as furniture and educational materials which will be placed in a number of schools. Thus, these materials will help ease the burden on the Jordanian government while improving conditions for the refugees as well as Jordanian citizens.
The government of Japan for Syrian refugees amounted $13 million, not only in Jordan but also in Lebanon, and Syria itself, and Iraq or Turkey. And so my government is now examining to extend additional assistance for the Syrian refugees. And the cabinet of the government has already decided it, but we are waiting for it passes the parliament. So I hope even within this month, February, we can announce a new assistance for the Syrian refugees.
We have a long relationship with JICA and also, of course, with the Japanese government and its people. Japan is one of the largest, the most effective, the most reliable donors to UNHCR. And here within Jordan, last year almost $2 million to UNHCR's programs, not just in the camp, but because JICA is usually a development agency, this concerned communities as well, where the majority of Syrian refugees have gone. This is critical. It's less visible perhaps to the public than as the camp, but it is nonetheless very important. And this year we have again received pledges up to, as I understand, up to $12 million this year, for which we are again extremely thankful. So again, on behalf of Mr. Harper, on behalf of UNHCR, and the refugees themselves, of course, Excellency, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Tanaka.
The humanitarian aid presented by the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, can be added to the agency's main role of encouraging international cooperation in the development of the social and economic sectors of developing nations. For this is the nature of humanitarian thinking, offering the hand of assistance to others without limit and across borders.